being careful because they're trying to shoot groups down there all of a sudden. And y'all were a little bit different than the expansion drill. You know? You need a little bit more. You know? You know, never be careful. If you're careful, you got a problem.
Right. Explain that.
Well, when you draw the bow back, once you start getting alignment, you draw the bow, and all of a sudden you look down there and that bow's just dead still, and you think, I could not miss this. But then subconsciously you don't want to really expand and use the back because you're afraid you're going to move it, and you do somewhat. Like I'm talking about, you got to trust the subconscious to bring back. So it becomes a fear. Everything looks so perfect. I don't want to screw this up. And the second that thought comes to your mind, I don't want to screw this shot up. It looks so good. Let the bow down right then, because you're about to screw this shot up. Because you get careful and you're not pulling through the shot. You know, you're not using your back. So then you get the little collapse and anticipated release and all that, and it really is bad. Versus it's set up there and you're pulling and you're just aiming and expanding until the shot breaks.
Won't be long for that. Hey, welcome to the wonderful world of morons, psychopaths, and mental defectives, also known as the Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by the fine folks at Black Widow Bows. This week's episode, we've got a whole bunch of people on. If you follow us on Instagram or Facebook or any of that, you know that we had Rod Jenkins up from Alabama to northern Idaho to do a shooting clinic. And also, if you listen to this podcast for any length of time, you know that I am a bow hunter first and an archer second. Interestingly enough, we posed the question a while back on our Facebook group. If it wasn't for bow hunting, would you still shoot a bow? And there was lots of people like me that shoot a bow because we like to bow hunt. But that doesn't mean we can't get better. So Rod came out, and we had a whole bunch. We had 13, I think, people total. And it was awesome. It was awesome to have Rod come out. It was honestly, it was a little intimidating at first. Just the idea of having somebody coach me. I'm speaking personally, especially somebody like Rod. But I would strongly recommend, if you could ever get to one of his clinics, you should do it. And heck, just like me, I just called him up and set a clinic up. I don't know, I think we started early spring or something, or late winter, and got the details hammered out. And I think we're going to have him back next year because it was a blast. We had a great group of folks. Lots of people stayed at the house that night and had a little barbecue. So it was good stuff. It was awesome. Now, if you can't make it to one of Rod's clinics, there's another option. Go over to thepush.com and look for the pack. So it's www.thepusharchery.com/pack. And those guys over there, Matt and Tim, have put together what they call the PAC, Push Archery Center of Knowledge. And what they have is several different courses. Rod's on there under Roots. They also have Tom Klum's Solid Archery Mechanics, Joel Turner's Controlled Process Shooting. They added some other ones, some filmmaking ones, Master Bowyer, Bear Bow. Go over there, and what you do is you buy these courses, and once you buy one, you have it for life. And they're constantly adding material to it. There's a forum to where you can talk to other students, and you can talk to the instructor. It's the next best thing for sure. I mean, you can send them videos. So check that out, The Push. www.thepusharchery.com/pack. I got to say, that's a great option. Also, I'm going to regret saying this. I know, because I'm not fully prepared, but we got T-shirts. I haven't picked them up yet. They're ready. So I think I'll have them up on the website or something. What else we got going on? The I Hunt Close, and they're flying in. I'm not getting them up on Instagram fast enough. We got a lot of photos from Australia, And so that's cool to see the following over there and all the stick bow kills. So send your 2021 success photos to ihuntcloseofficial@gmail.com and get in there. We got stuff to give away in December. We're going to randomly pick some winners. Sitka Gear, we get a package from them, which will be the first trad kill. So if it's your first trad kill, make sure you mention that. Safari Tough, Iron Will, and Kifaru, they've all banded together and, help promote the sport. See what can be done with a stick bow. So I got everybody on the podcast that was in the class except for 2 people. Super bummed I missed them. Justin Metcalf, that name, if you recognize that name, he was one of the guys that went to Texas and hunted down the top of Texas with us. That dude's a riot. He's infectious, fired up 110% at all times. I really wished I could have got him on. Him and another guy, Tevis, they both had to bail. They couldn't make it the second day for, family stuff, going on vacation and stuff. The other one was Ryan. I really wish I could have got Ryan on the podcast because his voice when he talks, and I'm not looking, it's Jason Sam Koyak, 100%. And maybe it's because he's from the same part of the country, but it's funnier than heck. A bunch of us jumped in the truck, went down the lake swimming after the class, and he was sitting in the back of the truck, and I just started talking. I spun around, I'm like, dude, you sound just like Jason Sam Koyak. So, yeah, I really wished I'd got him on there. But, yeah, we're just, interviewing everybody just for a few minutes, just talking about their background. We had a great mix of people who are just getting started, and then guys, old hands like me and Mike Milfreed, a couple other guys that have been doing it for a long time. So just kind of like seeing what you got out of the class, and it's a good BS session. And then Rod's on there. I don't know if Rod said it. I don't think he said it, but it was in my head all weekend. Like, he'd look at what I was doing and said, in my head, he didn't say it, but in my head it'd be, well, you could do it that way, but you'd be doing it wrong. So we had a blast. I want to say a big thanks to sponsors that keep this show going. Kifaru International, The Footed Shaft, Selway Archery, and Backwoods Grind Coffee Company. Now, talk about, I don't know if they're the best kept secret, but we do have a promo code, SB Chronicles 10, SB Chronicles 10. Use that promo code and you get 10% off. Now, just go on their website and try their sampler pack. Try a bunch of different grinds. Peru, and I think it used to be Fireside. But Peru is the one that I drink. I like a dark coffee. But I'm telling you, give it a try. You won't be disappointed. And, of course, Black Widow Bows. My riser is on its way. I haven't had my riser. And that's a tip for you. You want to do one of these classes, send your hunting weight bow somewhere else. So I've been shooting like a 40-pound Samick, working on my form, and it's turned out good, but I am anxious. Had the guys at Black Widow change the handle to a what is it, more like a Jaeger? I don't know. It's too technical for me, but there you go. Enjoy the week. That's all I got. Roger out.
Well, how's it going, Rod?
Oh, good. Late afternoon. Idaho was supposed to be cool. The west supposed to be cool compared to the south. Hot and sweaty all day.
Yeah, we don't have any humidity.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. So, real breeze. It's cool.
What do you think about North Idaho students? We got some Washington too, but we won't talk about them.
Well, it's just like, it doesn't make any difference where I'm at. Is everyone needs a little help in the basics, getting some of the basics down, and by far the whole group did well. It just took a little time to get there. The confusion and a little hesitancy to take that first step to do something different, and the fear of something different. I don't think we got by with it. Got through it all with everyone for the days out.
Yeah, and we're going to have some of the, whoever wants to jump on and talk about, the fear of trying something new and then what, because there's 7 steps, right? We went through 7 steps, and some of them, maybe one of them, I looked at them, well, I got that down. I can do that.
All right.
But, I'm sure everybody else had a different take on it. But
right. And it is just 7 little simple things. It's not complicated, because archery is not complicated. Shooting well is reasonably easy. It's just you have to have all your ducks in a row to shoot well, and that's what the basics are about, is getting those ducks in line.
I think there was like right at the end, so it was about 1 o'clock, 1:30. You worked down to our end, like, so we were all lined up shooting, and there was 4 or 5 of us standing there, and you weren't welcome down that end. About 1:30, we're like, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I get it, but first day's always tough because you're doing different things and you're frustrated you're not doing them real well, and maybe not as well as you think you should. But after the first day, you let everybody go home, hang out, relax, and get time to mull it over. It's amazing how much easier and how much better everybody is on the second day.
Looking forward to the second day. We got Eric and Tyann Bender, right?
Yep.
Said the name right?
Yep.
All right. You guys are from Troy, Montana?
Yep.
And so Eric, I know your story a little bit, but how did you get started in traditional?
So, I don't know why I started it, honestly. I don't remember what motivated me, but, it's guy, I had an interest in it, and a guy had a bow, and he said, I'm looking to sell that bow. I said, how much? He said, $300. I said, well, I can afford that. So I knew it was too much bow for me, but I could afford it, and that made all the difference in the world. And I figured too much bow is better than no bow, so I bought it, and I couldn't get it to full draw, and it was a process. Probably took me a year to get to full draw where I could be strong enough to pull it back to anchor, even though I'd been shooting compounds my whole life, and I would pull a 70-pound compound no problem, but that was something different. And,
No instruction.
No, and I guess I bought that bow right before Aaron Snyder came out with his story, making that switch. So whatever time frame that was, but the push was around, and podcasts, and I've listened to your podcast a lot, and and I did do Tom Clum's online course and watched that once, and some of it twice. I need to go back and do more, but so I did online stuff, but I've no formal coaching. Don't really rub elbows with too many people that I would consider high-level shots that could be like, everybody told you the same thing, stare at the spot like throwing a baseball. But if you're not a very good pitcher, what good does that do to try to pitch? So it was so I was reaching out to online resources trying to figure out there's got to be a better way, and I think I ended up interested in building my own bows, and Clay Hayes, and he swore he could teach you how to shoot one of those self bows as good as any other bow, and then he kind of put stuff out there that made me think he was telling the truth and could stand behind what he was saying. So I started following that and listened to Rod Jenkins, all the podcasts I can with him, and if you'd come out with your learning series on the push before Tom Clum did, I probably would have bought yours. But and so that was just I was just always picking away and trying to teach myself by watching stuff online and listening to podcasts and picking up little tidbits. And
but where I wanted you to go with that is you built a bow with Clay, right? And so didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And was it the first year you hunted with it?
So the first couple years, I kind of I'm gonna try to shoot a turkey. Well, and then I'm going to go back to my compound because I shot one and then I missed a bunch. And it's the last couple days of season, I went back to the compound. And then fall came around, it's like, I'll try and fill my doe tag with the longbow, but I'm going to do everything else with my compound. And then it was antelope hunting was the last straw that kept me going back to my compound. And then last year was we built that bow with Clay in a workshop in August. And then, the previous fall I'd kind of elk hunted with my compound, and then I put it away after elk season was over, and I picked up the longbow, and I didn't shoot that compound again for almost a full year. I just didn't want to shoot it. So that was, last year was the year when I said, I'm done with the compound. I'm all in. We built that bow, got home, I kind of figured out an arrow that worked for it. I felt really good and accurate, and I said, I'm hunting everything with this thing, and that's what I did.
So you're shooting wood arrows?
Wood arrows.
So you built it in August.
Yeah.
And then you killed a bull in September?
Yeah.
That was a heck of a nice bull.
It was a nice bull.
Yeah.
Any elk was a nice elk. It was I wasn't picky. It was the first one that stepped out in front of me. And, It was just, I guess, in some ways I should probably be super happy, but in a lot of ways it was just a relief that I had this goal and I achieved this goal.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of this pressure that I have to do this. I got to do this. And then once that pressure was gone, then it was like, okay, now I can start to have fun with it.
Yeah, you can relax and learn. So
Yeah.
now, you got time.
Yeah.
Right.
You did naysayers, right?
Yeah.
You quieted some of the naysayers.
Yeah. And I think I see Clay say it a lot too. And I think you can be as good as you want to be with something. I don't think there needs to be a limitation because, it was a bow you made. Well, you can build that bow well, and at some point you have to. If you do the same thing every single time, it'll hit the same spot. So I don't think you have to have a high-end bow. You just have to understand maybe, a professionally made, bow with all the different components and composite limbs. They might have more speed, they might have more forgiveness, which it just means you have to be better. If you're going to shoot something that's less forgiving or not quite as fast, you have to limit your range a little bit more and be a little closer. But
So going into the class, what did you expect? Like, what were you looking to gain out of the class?
from this one,
Yeah.
I liken a lot of archery to jiu-jitsu in that a lot of it's fairly simple process, but there's so many details that make all the difference in doing them right. And having just kind of taught myself or through videos and not having a lot of feedback, it's like I'll do something in jiu-jitsu and then we've got a really good program in Bonners Ferry and coach comes and says no, you got to do it like, and it's just this, he tweaks this little thing.
Yeah.
And then that's what I was hoping with coming here and learning from Rod and never having been around somebody of his credentials and that experience is I think I'm holding my head right, and he comes and goes, yeah, not really, pull it back. And it's like what I thought felt right, it wasn't what I perceived it to be, and they can make those little tweaks, and that would change everything, because then I have to take that to whatever limitations I place on myself and equipment. I have to be that much better because
Right.
I don't want D-tag soup just because I chose a harder route.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be just as successful as I've always been, but that just means I have to be better at it. So I guess that's, and then the other thing, I'm here with my wife now and my son, and
Honeymoon trip, by the way.
yeah.
I'm glad you said it. I wasn't going to say it.
Started off on the wrong foot here, but
You guys were married on Wednesday.
Yeah.
This is Saturday.
we're going to self-correct. I'll make up for it. But this was an amazing opportunity because they're learning to shoot at the beginning of their journey. No compound history, nothing. And I'm trying to help them along the way, but there's a limitation to how much I can help because there's a limitation with what I know. And I want to see them do well and be successful, and it makes it that much more fun. And the more fun they have, the more they'll want to do it with me, and then it makes it that much more of a shared experience. So I brought them along, and I didn't have to try very hard.
No.
I wrote
convince
an
her.
article several years ago about bow hunters are the biggest liars of all time. They lie to themselves every day. What you think you're doing is never exactly what you are doing.
Yeah.
And that, kind of going back to what you were talking about, I thought I was, but
Yeah.
and video and stuff's great, but a set of eyes that see things, and it's different. You can really see, and what you think you can do is fantastic, but we do lie to ourselves. We think we look like this way, and now video, everybody's got slow motion on their phone so they can see, but they have to get to the point they know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're doing here today.
Yeah, and it's, trying to do these primitive type skills, it's taught me how important learning through a primitive learning system can be.
Right.
Is having some of that hand-on instruction where somebody can really look and say, hey, I know I recognize what you're doing wrong, change this. It doesn't matter what you think you're doing, this is,
Right.
so.
Diane, how long you just start shooting?
2 years. He
2
got me
years?
a bow for Christmas when we first met, so.
Yeah. And what was the one thing today that stood out to you, or maybe it was all of it?
Well, I mean, the basics, I think, I mean, the idea and all that is like, I thought I had it. But the whole anchor point thing, like I was overdrawing big time. And I knew that, but it just felt good to, but no, that's not what I need to do. So just getting into that right there was the hugest thing for setting up for that. So that
Was it the string, or was it actually when you got out here? Was it the string drill that we did inside, measuring?
No, it was out here. It was at the very end, actually. When I was, going to my anchor point, I was coming back and then going then releasing a little bit instead of coming right to it and then drawing my shoulders together.
Yeah, the string bow doesn't let you overdraw. It
Yeah.
doesn't give, it doesn't give any. But it's always great to go back and check. Okay, this is where my alignment is. So keep up with that.
How about you? What was the one? Was there one big thing that struck you today?
I don't know if there's one big thing. There was lots of things. Like the first thing I remember really going, oh, was when you just talked about, getting everything in alignment with the head and the grip and, your anchor arm and the way you lean in and how that changes that triangle and things are no longer in a line. And I was kind of like, yeah, I really shouldn't have to be learning that right now. Like I've listened to enough stuff. Like I should have that down, but I didn't have that down. And I think that has been a big problem for me, is leaning into my string and then hitting the tip of my nose. And I didn't hit the tip of my nose once today.
Oh, and that was a problem with you before?
That's been something that sporadically, not always. And I was like, why am I not hitting my nose today? And it's just that, like you said, it's that 1/2000th of an inch, and that, how much of a change that little head movement can be at 25 yards and 50 yards, and how exponentially it grows. And that took away. I never even nicked my nose today. It's just standing more erect, getting things in line. And I had always been inclined to lean over because I just wanted my arrow to stay on the rest, and that's why I started canting. But then that led to leaning in, and so that really. And I had an idea about back tension, but I think from watching the Tom Klum series, but I don't know that I necessarily picked up on pushing that, getting the back arm up higher because of how we're anchoring higher.
The back elbow.
And it's just little things, and just sometimes, like I've noticed, when one jiu-jitsu coach talks and then another guy comes in and he says something, you go, oh yeah, well they're both high-level black belts, and you're a high-level coach, and Tom Klum's, even though I've never met him, he's probably a high-level coach, but you had a different way of saying it or demonstrating it, and it resonated on that point, and so I got something different that I hadn't got out of everything else I'd done. So those are two things that really jumped out at me.
So,
well, cool. Well, thanks for jumping in and giving your.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll look forward to. He says it gets easier tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to easier. All right. So next up, we got Andrew Eller and Trent Wangert. Thanks for agreeing to do this, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So Andrew, we'll start with you. Like, how long you been shooting a stick bow? And we're just talking about like what you got out of the class, but a little background. How long have you been shooting a stick bow?
About 2 years now. A little less than 2 years.
What got you fired up?
I don't know, just transitioning from the compound. Had some, the buddies look like they're having way more fun than I am. They're shooting their stick bows, so why not give it a try? And I'm hooked. So.
Trent, not everybody knows you. You kind of. What do you do for a living?
Build bows.
You've been shooting for a long time, stick bows.
Yeah, Dad got us those little fiberglass bows when we were kids. So I was the youngest. So I guess for as long as I can remember, we had little stick bows. So yeah.
So coming into this class, like, what was your expectations, Andrew? What was your expectations, and what did you look to, what were you looking to work on, and did anything surprise you?
Didn't really surprise me. I knew Rod's got a tremendous amount of experience looking at people, breaking down their form, seeing what they're doing wrong, seeing what they need to adjust. And man, I just want to like get as much input. I can only work on so much, but with the trained eye, can doesn't
Yeah,
take
it's
a
hard
whole.
to see yourself sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And like, no matter how much experience you have, like coaches need coaches. Like even if I try to break it down the best I can, I need someone like him to take a look and see what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't know you were shooting a stick bow when I ran into you at the range there this winter, and I was like, "Holy smokes, you're shooting a stick bow! That's awesome!" And I was super impressed with your shooting. And so, what did you use for a basis?
It's definitely easier now because there's so much info out there, but that can also muddy up the water. So you kind of have to, you really have to like be careful who you're listening to. And there's, I was like really paying attention to stuff that Rod was saying on podcasts. You guys are putting out a lot of info, and so it was like the push guys. Rod's putting out info, and some of the other fellows like Tom Klum. But it's just trying to put that together. Also taking my compound stuff. You have to have your form needs to be on point. You gotta your process, and then just taking the process and trying to transfer that over the best as possible. So I think
I told Rod, I'm like, man, I want you to see this guy Andrew, because like I'm the untrained eye, right? But I was really impressed with the way you were shooting. What did you think about his shooting? Like,
Did well. I think everybody come across. One of your major deals we got fixed pretty quick, and
Cool.
you learn fast and go well.
thank you.
And it's kind of funny, and I don't know where this is the proper place, but it amazes me, guys that's pretty experienced and good shooters of compound, and they'll pick up a longbow, recurve, any kind of twist scope, and somehow or another they believe, or they've been told, to forget everything they know about shooting a bow, and it's not that way.
Yeah.
So you did a good job of sifting through that manure anyway.
Thanks.
yeah. Anything? What was was there one big takeaway for you, or like that you didn't know you needed help on?
I kind of had an idea what I need to do, but his aligning my shoulders, a little bit of work there, just some adjusting here and there, and I kind of had an idea. I wasn't completely lost in it, but definitely it takes the eye, it takes the trained eye to like kind of know exactly what I need to do.
One thing I thought was interesting, and I would have said just the opposite. I don't know why, but when we did the string, what would you call it? Just this
String bow
in the barn, everybody was having to loosen up, and then when we got out there and actually started shooting, everybody's outsert or insert, I mean, their draw length got longer.
Yeah.
Almost, as far as I know, everybody did.
Yeah.
It's an alignment issue. Some guys just don't draw the bow far enough because the bow gets heavier.
Yeah.
And alignment issues, because when your shoulders not lined up and you line them up, you gain much, and that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
A little bit, and like I always say, well, we've got a draw length. Not everybody's using theirs. We've all got one, and like what I was saying one today was trying to overdraw the bow because shorter draw length and trying to get more. Well, you can't do that any better than you can short draw the bow. You have to use your alignment keys.
Sure.
How about you, Trent? I mean, you're a good shot. Like, was there?
I don't know. Yeah. So for me, a lot of the stuff, like I can hear stuff on podcasts and stuff like that, and it's one thing. Like the only form training I ever had was Tom Klum at the one shoot. We were at the same shoot, and he worked with me for just a couple minutes, and basically all we had time for was getting our fingers on the string and kind of how to draw the bow, and that's about all we had time for. So that's the only training I ever had as far as form stuff goes. And the hardest thing for me is knowing how to get in my back, because you can hear people talk about it, but it makes a world of difference if somebody that knows what they're doing is right there and can put their hand on your back, say, okay, you need to feel this, Like you just can't. It's hard. That was one thing I really struggled with, is to know if I'm in my bag or not.
Yeah.
And obviously, if I videoed myself shoot, my hands flying out. Another big problem I always had was, especially under pressure, my shoulder comes up, and the hand flying away from my face. I mean, it's just chronic. Like it's just, it's like I'm trying to slap a fly or something. And so, You'll learn way more in half an hour than you will from days listening to stuff if you have somebody that knows what they're doing right there showing you how to do it. And that was really cool to be able to do that. And the alignment thing too, you know, with the arrow on the back pointing towards the target. Obviously, I think everybody was probably pointing off to the left, you know, for a right-handed shooter.
And then the bow arm jumps left and they miss left. And,
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
it's because of how they set up alignment to start with.
And it's the start. It's your feet.
Yeah, and the feet, you know, like I said, today we wouldn't picture perfect feet, but we were rotating at the waist and getting the shoulders lined up, because all these guys want to hunt, so that's where it's important, you know. I mean, you practice setting the feet slightly open and all that, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be hunting on manicured grass, so it's not going to be dead level. So you really know how to line the shoulders up, and you make that work from the waist up. Yeah, the back tension you're talking about, I used to do this in clinics, didn't do it today, but I'd ask the group, say, okay, how many understand back tension? And we'd always have 5 or 6 or 7 raise their hand. And then at the second day, I'd say, okay, how many really understand back tension? And every now and then you'd have 1, because what we think is back tension is not, it's arm pulling. You know, most of the time. Yeah. Or a little tense on it and turn the bow loose, because, you know, they didn't pull long enough, didn't build enough tension to get off the string. So it's always interesting, you know.
Yeah, sure. No, like 10, 15 years ago, I thought back tension was just pulling the string back. That's how little I knew about it, so, yeah.
Well, you mentioned your bow shoulder. I think you and I took the trophy today for bow shoulders. When Rod said something about, you know, your bow shoulders out, you know, bowed out, and I looked, I'm like, God dang, that thing's about to punch me in the face.
Yeah, it really was. You was letting the bow compress you and round the shoulder up, and that's what I'm saying. My shoulder won't last forever doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
And the internal rotation of the shoulder instead of like the forearm.
Right.
You know, and it starts to ride up.
Right. Right out of line.
I'm always coaching myself to push that sucker back down and try to inward rotate of your.
And using a lat to just shrug it, hold it to get to the conclusion the shot's over with. It's real easy, and it's foolproof.
Yeah, your simple steps, you know, and then arriving at the conclusion really simplifies that, because, you know, it's if you overcomplicate things, it, you know, just muddies up the water a little bit too much, where like you're thinking about too much. Well, you got to just simplify it. Anchor your front shoulder, align them, you know, go through the steps.
Yeah, and that bow shoulder is something that I feel confident that I can work on. There were some other things that I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is bad. I'm not hearing this right now.
You really got a big smile when you started talking about string blurs, huh?
Yeah. String what?
Rob got really excited about that one.
I just zoned out on the whole string blur thing. Yeah, we're gonna not do that.
Simplest falling off a log. It's just another key to help you land every time.
Yeah.
To double check. And
no, it worked.
And once you do it, you don't ever check it, but you subconsciously know where the string's at to blur every time.
We didn't shoot that much. I don't know. I'm guessing like 30, 40 shots. But I had 3 shots that I felt, and 2 of them came right at the end. We're like, oh, I felt that. That was right.
Yeah. So, you know, the great thing, or one of the goals, even with the most beginner, or people with a lot of problems trying to get it, is to get them to feel that one good solid shot where they were in good alignment. And once you feel it, you will do whatever it takes to repeat it. But if a guy doesn't ever feel that good shot from however he went, and he really doesn't know what he's searching, you know. But like I said, the bow always tells you when you shoot it correct. It doesn't make much noise, and it jumps straight to the target every time.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for coming out here. I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
And I've enjoyed the trip.
It ain't over yet. I wouldn't cast judgment. It ain't over yet. You might be.
Yeah, you might hate us all by the end of it.
Well, 1:30, I was ready to see you walking to Spokane tomorrow.
Those guys are something wrong up there.
I saw his eyes roll a few times earlier this morning. Like, man, I got my work cut out for me here.
Bunch of
Hey,
rednecks.
it's the same thing everywhere. You know, y'all guys are pretty good shooters, but you know, I do clinics where everybody in it is a world champion, everyone. And guess what? We're working on the same little stuff as we work with y'all. You know, it's about, you know, beginners need to learn the basics, you know, really, if you coach it. And world-class shooters just need to be better in the basics. But it's the same thing for both of them.
Same struggle for everybody.
Sharpen that razor's edge, just
Right.
do the
Yeah.
basics better and better.
And it doesn't really do anything to complicate things, and a lot of people try to do that, you know. They complicate things to death, but it really don't help, you know.
For sure.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, next up we got a couple of jack wagons. They just showed up. Mike Milfreed, Jake Strohmeyer, two of my good buddies. What's up, guys?
Not much.
Well, you know, Jake, look, I want to hear, like, you guys got completely different stories. So, Jake, just to introduce, I mean, people have heard you on the podcast before. How long have you been shooting bow?
Oh, so I've been shooting a bow for, I don't know, over 20 years, but just started on the trad bow a little bit over a year ago. Hunted with the stick bow last year during elk season, and yeah, going at it again this year.
Mike?
I started archery hunting probably 1994 with a compound, but I hunted for maybe 3 years with that and just wasn't really satisfied. And so probably 96, 97, I started shooting longbows and just bought a recurve and kind of been traditional ever since.
You finally saw the light, you bought a recurve.
I knew that was going to be thrown in there somewhere.
Yeah, it finally came around.
I'm slumming it now.
Well, that'll be really good. What's your address? What's your phone number? So, you know, so we got a kind of a brand new guy and then a guy like me that's been doing a while. We're kind of ingrained in our bad habits and, you know, it's
Unfortunately.
worked. Yeah, it's worked. It's worked to some extent, but we're ingrained in what we do. Jake, going into this thing, what did you expect and what really surprised you?
So, I think my expectations were pretty well aligned with what actually happened. I mean, just, you know, really going through that, you know, that shot sequence and form. I think what surprised me a bunch was learning that I needed to change my anchor point, which I just figured out just from listening to Rod talk before we even got to the point where we were at the string. And, you know, because my issue is that I realized my eye wasn't over with my, you know, just regular old corner of the mouth like I thought you were supposed to anchor. My eye wasn't aligned over the arrow, so I had been compensating by throwing my head over to get it aligned. And so I realized you could fix that with a different anchor. Made a world of difference right off the bat, and so I was surprised what a big difference that made. I think the other thing that I really took away from today was I understood back tension pretty well, I think, from my compound shooting days, but the whole idea of continuing to, you know, using back tension to draw, get there, but continuing to increase that back tension as you shoot. I never did shoot a back tension release as a compound shooter. You know, I'd try to use back tension and then use that to actually just, you know, use a regular, you know, trigger release. But that was a huge learning point for me today, just continuing to pull through, because I couldn't really ever figure out how to surprise myself with a shot if I'm having to release my hand, but continuing to pull with just a light tension in my fingers, and yeah, all of a sudden the thing just flies out. So I, like I said, met my expectations, and I think those were kind of the surprising takeaways that I just didn't really know were out there from other stuff that I'd listened to.
You seem pretty confident, like moving forward, like, oh yeah, I got this. Like,
well, I mean, it was pretty cool to have, you know, a world-renowned coach look at me and say, hey man, you're killing it, and look at, you know, a guy that has been doing it his whole life and say you suck, and it's like, yeah, I'm pretty freaking confident now.
I wondered if you were going to use that. I'm pretty sure you were.
I saw some money change hands too. Yeah, there's a lot of scheming going on. Yeah, all I heard was, "Attaboy, Jake, you're the best."
Well, I don't think I ever said anybody the best. I'm saying, yeah, fantastic, man. Do this a little bit better.
Yeah,
Because the way I was coached, it never was anything. It was never optimum.
yeah. Well, you've scarred me today through him. Like that will not. Like I will hear this for a
Man, the
long
truth's
time.
the truth. Sometimes you just have to tell it. You were shooting the bow well.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta say though, I went, and Jason and I went and shot like three arrow groups at 20 yards, and we're done. I shot the best 3 arrow 20-yard group I've ever shot.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically touching at 20 yards.
I'm calling BS.
Yeah,
I didn't take a picture. I didn't take a picture of it, but it was a good group.
Well, it was just blind luck. You shot directly after Rob, so Rob, and then you. They're going to tell you you're looking good after Rob shot.
This is done. Give me 2 more.
What was it? Something about monkeys jumping around on his back?
Yeah, something like that.
And see, when I'm watching up the hill, y'all shooting, I think these guys are not into that fearless mode where they can just expand and let it go off. They're being careful because they're trying to shoot groups down there all of a sudden. And y'all were a little bit different than the expansion drill. You need a little bit more. Never be careful. If you're careful, you got a problem.
Right.
Explain that.
Well, when you draw the bow back, once you start getting alignment, you draw the bow, and all of a sudden you look down there and that bow's just dead still, and you think, I could not miss this. But then subconsciously you don't want to really expand and use the back because you're afraid you're going to move it, and you do somewhat. Like I'm talking about, you got to trust the subconscious to bring it back. So it becomes a fear. Everything looks so perfect, I don't want to screw this up. And the second that thought comes to your mind, I don't want to screw this shot up, it looks so good, let the bow down right then, because you're about to screw this shot up. Because you get careful and you're not pulling through the shot, you're not using your back. So then you get the little collapse and anticipated release and all that, and it really is bad. Versus it's set up there and you're pulling and you're just aiming and expanding until the shot breaks. Those are money.
Yeah.
All the time, but you don't need to be careful.
Yeah.
Because careful kills you. It's like tournament shooters. They call from the world all the time, man, I'm just not shooting good. What's wrong? Well, pull harder. Be fearless. Is that really all it is? Yeah, it is. And several of them took world championships after that. Just be fearless. Shoot strong shots. If you can't do anything else, shoot a strong shot. If you miss and shoot a strong shot, you're in a better shape than you are of being careful and shooting a weak, collapsing shot that you were careful with.
Yeah, and actually when I was over there trying to shoot some groups, I actually did let down twice, and I've probably hardly ever done that before, and that was just thinking about that. It's like, no, I know this isn't going to go good, just let it down, start over. So, yeah, and I mean, I think what the best part of this is that I think I got not that I've mastered any of it, but I know what the sequence is that I just need to keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And I think that's what I meant by feeling confident in that I know I've got like the tools to move forward and just keep getting better.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just seem like, I got this. Like, I know what to work on.
Yeah.
You're pretty positive. Yeah. So, Mike, there's 7 steps that we started with. And for me, you and I are kind of in the same boat. I looked at 7 of them, and like there was 1 or I maybe 2 that like, okay, I'm okay there. Anything strike you in the beginning? Like,
yeah, it was really interesting. This is the first time I did anything like this. I mean, I started, back in the mid '90s when there really wasn't even internet. So everybody had a certain book and everybody did it the same way. But unless you got a guy standing there saying, no, move your hand an inch or 3 degrees this way, and it's a small motion that makes a world of difference. That's the thing that's really helped. I mean, you can even nowadays, you can go on the internet, you can watch videos, but it's not you in the scenario. When you're in the scenario and you have this guy telling you, okay, now do it this way, feel the difference. Yeah, it's amazing. And then just some of the information, like where you told us that the brain can focus for 3 seconds. You have 3 seconds to aim. Get your shot process out of the way, lining up, and then aim. that's going to be, I think, huge for me.
Yeah, that's a major problem. It really is with it. Especially with target panic and everything else is we start aiming before we draw the bow. And at best, when we get to anchor, we're on the downside of our visual focus, our mental focus, and eyesight is degrading. So we're in a weakened position before we're ready to shoot, even at best. But the problem is with the aiming before we draw the bow and all that is the subconscious starts saying, shoot, shoot, shoot. I got this. But it's seeing what it wants to see, and it don't care if you had anchor or not. And before long, you start turning it loose. They start going before you even get to anchor, and you got to take control of the subconscious. It's your best friend, your worst enemy. So no other shooting sport, anybody tries to aim before they get to anchor, never ever. But we try to do it with traditional somehow, some way or another. So I think it's really bad, but it's easy to work through.
I think the best analogy for that was when you were talking about shooting a rifle.
Yeah, right.
You don't start aiming until you got that stock snugged up in your shoulder and your cheek is touching the stock, and then you start looking and aiming. And that kind of was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me.
Exactly. Why don't we try to do it different with archery? We don't. And compound guys don't try to do that. They're not trying to anchor.
Yeah.
Was there any of those steps that you were like, oh, I'm good there?
I had been working on some of them, but I think my hand placement was pretty good. But the back tension is I think the hardest part for a lot of people. To feel it, to get it, to become second nature. And so there was like one or two of the steps that I thought I was solid on, and then the rest I knew all could be improved upon.
Mm-hmm. Is head placement an issue for you?
Oh, huge.
Yeah, a huge issue for me.
Yeah, head placement and back tension are probably the two big elephants in the room, as far as my shooting goes, and I think it's probably pretty common.
Yeah, I thought I wouldn't have any problem with the whole alignment side of it, and then I was the first one that did it. I was pointing, it was like I'm 30 degrees off, and I'm like, man, I thought just from my compound shooting days, I thought I had that nailed, and I thought I was squared up, but I wasn't, and so that was it was just good to have somebody look at me, and so now I know I just need that my hips got to be way more than what I think it needs to be rotated toward there. And I got the feel for it later in the day after practicing it. But I would have never caught that on my own.
Yeah, I almost felt like I was looking back over my shoulder at the target until the bow was drawn.
Until the bow was drawn, and then it feels perfect.
And then everything's in line.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even me, because I don't shoot as much as I used to at all when I was competing, because I don't have time to shoot much, and go sitting in there like Trent was taking video. Let me see that, because it's real easy to get rusty without checks, doing drills and checking. And, if I was going to try to start shooting, which I might, the first thing I'd do was jump right in on drills, the same thing I'm laying out for y'all to do when you get home, because they work 100% for everyone. So,
I mean, Mike and I are in the same boat. Like, when you had a problem, you don't have anybody to look at you and say, oh, you're doing this wrong, or oh, you're doing that wrong. No, it's huge for me to have somebody say, what are you doing? I'm like, well, everything right? Why? What do you think?
In my mind, I'm looking good.
I'm a rock star up between these two ears.
Yeah, I told the young couples in here a while ago, I wrote an article years ago about traditional bow hunters were the biggest liars on earth. They lie to themselves every day. They're never doing exactly what they think they're doing. And I gripe about this all the time. When I was a youngster, we would die over some 16 millimeter film. It was actually before the 8s even come out.
Yeah.
And we would die for just some film time, but it was super expensive and they weren't everywhere. And it was just, and now everybody's got slow motion on their phone, but they don't use it. And it frustrates me. It's like, you got it right there, use it. And that being said, I hadn't found myself in a long time, so I was looking at somebody else's film today.
Yeah. I can't wait for elk season now though. When Rob and I are out stump shooting, I'm gonna have to set my hand on his back. It's like, man, I'm not.
You put your hand on
I'm
my
not
back
feeling
out in the woods.
tension
We got
there,
a
bro.
problem, bro.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little too personal.
It's like, I'm not feeling it.
That scapula's not rotating,
Oh
Rob.
no.
All right. Well, I think the vittles are ready.
On that note,
Yeah. On that note, we're gonna end this thing with a little deliverance banjo.
Yeah. Somebody has to make it weird all the time.
So we got Mark Severance
Yes, sir.
and Tevis Hall here at the Rod Jenkins North Idaho Clinic. We just ate dinner and everybody's a little sleepy-eyed. But just tell us a little bit, Mark. Tell us a little bit, like what your background is shooting trad, how long you been shooting.
I'd say I've been shooting maybe three and a half years or so. Scooped it up because there used to be a place in town. I don't know if you remember in Coeur d'Alene called Pony Express Northwest. Yeah, you remember that place?
Yeah.
So I just ended up on a whim buying a bunch of the sticks when they went out of business, and picked one of those up and put the compound down, and just never looked back from there.
What was the guy's name that was running that? He was a nice guy.
He was a super nice guy.
You remember his name?
No, I don't remember the name, but it was like it was sad. It's like they closed down Disneyland for me when that place shut down.
Yeah, that was a cool place. Yeah.
Hard to make it in business.
But yeah, I mean, it was trad bows and like old rifles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was like vintage guitars, vintage guns, and traditional archery.
Yeah.
So,
kind of fun.
yeah, it was like you'd have to kick me out of the store at the end of the night, you know.
Somebody get you into it, or just on a whim?
No, just on a whim, you know. I shot that compound for like one season, and I just something about it I just didn't enjoy. I just felt like I should be shooting a rifle, because I'm like, I'm lining up a rear sight, a front sight. You know, I got to keep it level. It weighs as much as my rifle, schlepping it around in the woods, and
Harder to carry too.
yeah, it was annoying to carry around. I thought my rifle weighs less than this, you know, and then when I decided I'm gonna try the stick bow and see what happens, it was
Game
I
on.
thought, yeah, I thought this is the way it's supposed to be for me.
So, did you have anybody coach you up? Do you have a mentor or anybody?
Nothing. I just kind of scrapped what I could from where I could, and you know, I mean, we kind of all know how that goes. Some of it's questionable, and well, it's come to find out pretty much all of it's questionable after today, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's. I used to think there'd be a lot of great information, and sometimes I look and guy on, say, Facebook, I have on one of those rooms and whatever, and he'll have a very simple question, and 35 people that don't really know what the hell he's talking about answering it. You know, they miss the entire question, and it'll turn into arguments somewhere. You know, a little pissing contest down the road, but they never did even address what the guy was asking. Yeah.
Tevis Hall. Tevis, what's your background? What's your story?
So I've been shooting trad for about 17 years now. I was working at Cabela's at the time, running night crew there, and we had one of the night crew guys on there. His name was Joel. He was all into it, you know, loved it. So I was shooting a compound for a couple of years. He's like, you got to try this trad bow. You can borrow one of mine. We went to a 3D shoot, and we just had fun. I mean, every time we'd go out, we'd be betting each other, you know, quarters, dollars, nickels per course. We had fun. We would, you know, shoot all over the place, traveled a lot with him. And eventually he moved on, and he went over to, he was a police officer, went over to Afghanistan to train forces over there. Made some money there, and then he's back in the area now, but he got me into it. And then from there, I kept with it, and then started getting my kids into it, and
Yeah, your whole clan shoots, right?
all 5 of them, and my wife started shooting this last year, so that's been nice too to get her out involved with it. So we're able to have it as a family thing now.
Yeah.
But all the way from my youngest is 5 now, but he started shooting when he was 2, and my girls shoot. I have two girls, 3 boys, and we just have a blast with it. And then just learning, I learned a little bit from Joel. He was a big just kind of pull it, and he had heavy pound bows, lots of long bows. That was his thing, and so he's just like, just look at the target and shoot, and we just had fun with it. And then started trying to learn how to shoot better. Read what available books were out there, Not a ton of information in that early 2000s that were at least easily accessible. Tried to look at online forums, and it just was too confusing.
Yeah.
To really, it was just like one guy says this, one guy says that, and they contradict each other. So I just kind of plunked along trying to figure it out, and then as better information's come over, I've continued to try to progress, and then as soon as I think it was Trent told me that Rod was coming up here, it's like, oh, please sign me up. I want some formal training, because even with like just watching YouTube videos or listening it's definitely not the same as having someone to be able to see and correct it right then, versus even when you film yourself, you're trying to correct it from your standpoint and from what you've learned from someone else.
Right.
So it's still like third-hand knowledge to you. Yeah. So to be able to just go through that and say, hey, turn this way, or this is really what it lines up to, and have that correction in real time, it's invaluable. It's really connected some of those dots.
So, you've been doing it for 17 years, but I don't feel like you are stuck in a rut or afraid to change. It sounds like you've been trying to progress the whole time.
Yeah, no, I've wanted to progress. I want to be a better archer. Luck or skill or whatever, I've managed to kill a lot of animals with bows. Probably because I was a better hunter tracker than I might have been a shot, and I'm not a bad shot. But I've always wanted to continue to progress. I'd rather be that person who could feel super confident going in and not double guessing myself. Because I look back on certain hunts, it's like I remember my first elk with a recurve, and it was like 15 yards, and it would be easy shot nowadays. But I remember, I wasn't confident. I wasn't confident in my skills, even though I think my skills at the time probably could have done it. And I look back at that moment and letting that elk walk by because I was too scared to take a shot. It's not that I whiffed or anything. I just never let an arrow go because I wanted that perfect situation. And then the more I hunted, it's like, oh, there isn't perfect situations. I can get close, so I just need to learn how to shoot better. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that progress has gone, and I want to continue it because I enjoy making that next step and progressing in whatever I'm doing.
I like the fact that you put your success to your woodsmanship skills and your hunting.
That's probably more reasons why I've killed things is because being able to stalk, being able to know where game's at, or just being persistent. Spending 10 days by yourself out in the middle of nowhere and until it happens, and you learn a lot along the way. And that's probably why I've killed more animals than necessarily my shooting skills. I'm not horrible. I can shoot decently, but I definitely would attribute more of the animals on the ground to the hunting skills and not the shooting. So now I want to bring my shooting skills more on par with the hunting skills.
Yeah, and you got a goat tag in the family this year.
Yeah.
What you got going on there?
So my oldest boy, he's 13. Probably the luckiest 13-year-old. Last year he drew a bull moose tag in Idaho, which is a once in a lifetime tag here. Drew that, shot a nice bull moose last year. First time putting in. This year he put in for a mountain goat tag, the same one I've been putting in for like 5 years in a row now. And he drew that mountain goat tag. And he wants to do it with a bow. So he's been practicing. He's going to continue to practice in that. We're going to see what happens.
Wow.
And all my kids shoot traditional. So
he drew tags 2 years in a row.
Two once in a lifetime tags in Idaho.
No justice.
There's that. So, but yeah, we're super stoked about that. He's excited about it.
What's his range? What do you feel like his maximum range is right now?
He's probably in that, honestly, probably that 15 to 20. Mm-hmm. He's,
That's pretty good.
I would say 15. I'd be confident of him shooting at 15. 20 would probably I'm going to be nervous at that point if he lets an arrow go at 20. But it is definitely within his skills, and he's one of those kids that he's really serious about whatever he's undertaking at the time. So if he puts his mind to it, I have no doubt he can do it. Or he's going to turn in his tag without getting a mountain.
Really?
He's kind of one of those kids. If he really gets in his mind, I told him, hey, we'll bring a backup rifle. And he's like, no, I don't want to do a rifle, Dad. And I was like, oh, boy. So we're going to find out how good he really is. But he's got confidence in himself.
What's his setup?
So he's actually shooting one of my, right now, he's been trying to up his bow poundage. And so I have a 52 pound longbow made by Greg Coffey, Java Man.
Yeah.
Sweet shooting little bow. It's 56 inches long. At his draw length right now, it's probably shooting in that low 40s, probably 42, 43. He is probably right around that 25, 6-inch draw length. And he's getting more used to the bow. At first, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but he's getting more confident with it and being able to pull it better. But before that, he'd been shooting in that 20 to 30 pound, kind of youth bows, and it shot really, really well. That bigger bow is giving him a little more fits than the other ones, but he's starting to get better and more consistent with it. But so we'll see. Arrow setup I haven't figured out yet for him.
What do you think of the broadhead?
Well, I'm shooting iron wills. I'm probably going to let him shoot my iron wills, even though there's a good chance that one might rock it and not find it again. But I'd rather have.
That's a good dad, isn't it?
I put some money down on those things, so it was an investment. But honestly, I want to give him the best chance that he has. So if he hits it, I want the best thing on the front that I can afford, and I have those. So I'll give him my personal stash of those, and cross my fingers that if he, that number one, that I think he'll do it. But two, if there is a flyer there that we find that, so
he'll be fine.
But yeah, I think he'll do good.
Yeah. So coming into this clinic, it sounds like you've tried to progress your shooting through the years. Like, what surprised you? I asked a couple of the other guys. We had those 7 steps in the beginning. Did you look at any of those 7 things and think, oh, this one, I've got this, I already do this, and what did you look at and go, oh man, this is going to be a struggle?
Honestly, like the 7 steps are things that I've heard in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's through a podcast, YouTube, even the Masters of the Barebow, I've seen all of those. So I'm kind of familiar with those steps. But the biggest thing for me was the execution of those. For me, I'd heard these, and as much as I think I was doing some of those, having Rod be able to sit there and say, hey, turn this way, or pull your arm or elbow up here, really helped kind of cement those. So I was familiar with the 7 steps, or steps like those,
right.
But actually the execution of them, trying to coach myself over the years using other people's information, I didn't realize that I was out of alignment here, or I needed to do this, or the explanation of it. I think the big thing for me was like the high elbow. That I kept my elbow down really parallel with my shoulders, not realizing that kind of threw off my shot because my anchor point was high, and I needed to bring my elbow up because my anchor point was up on my chin, or up on my cheek versus down below my chin, where it would have made sense to have that lower parallel elbow.
That's pretty well a nationwide deal, because people watch Olympics, YouTube or whatever, watch Olympic archery, and it's a big deal. The shoulder's dead level. Well, they're shooting dead level targets also, but then when you move that hand up, well, it changed the whole game. Now the elbow's got to come up, or you're pulling down instead of around. So it's
another one, that shoulder alignment. I thought I was my shoulders were aligned to the target. Realized that I needed to turn another 10 degrees or so with my shoulders to actually get them in line. Just something that, even though I heard the information somewhere else, I couldn't put it together until Rod kind of said, no, you got to turn a little bit more. So
I think we were all in the same boat when he's setting us up. You're like, that target's behind me.
Yeah.
Almost
felt that way.
Everybody was like,
felt like my back was almost to the target at that point. I was just like, there's no way this is in alignment, but
we looking at the same target, Rod.
Right.
So when you got up there and actually did it, did you feel like something was going to be a real struggle?
Mine was my release.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's something that I pluck my fingers really bad. I've always kind of done that, and part of it comes with I was probably more of a, hey, I need to shoot now kind of a thought versus increasing back tension. Even though I knew that's probably what I should be doing, but I was like, well, I want to shoot the bow now because it feels like it's aligned, it feels like it's on target. I need to let go of this arrow. Right. And so because of that, I tend to pluck really bad. And so my hand would fly away from my face, my fingers would go out. and just getting that proper back tension and not worrying about that, as far as like the letting go, or hey, I need to let go of this arrow now, the shoot, really helped. And I felt like, I didn't feel like I had that problem at all today. As far as my fingers popping out, maybe a little bit here and there, but compared to my normal shot, I was actually surprised. Like, whoa, my hand came back and touched my shoulder, and I didn't have to do a big circle around to get to it. It just naturally kind of fell back there. So that was probably the biggest one, is like, getting those proper alignments and the proper tension. All of a sudden, that just went away. That plucking.
It's amazing that all other shooting sports is that definitely, and you've been trained, I know.
Yeah.
But they train against trying to anticipate the let go, trigger, whatever, try to train against it, where with traditional, we tend to, okay, there it is now, let's shoot now, versus starting the process and letting the shot go off, just like a
firearms, yeah.
Right. And it's just a different mindset, but it's just easy to do one way as it is the other.
So, Mark, what about you? Like, when you looked at that sheet of paper, was there anything that jumped out at you, those 7 steps, that you thought, well, I'm already doing that? Was there anything that you looked at and thought, oh, this is going to be a challenge?
Well, I tried to come in as a blank slate, as much of a blank slate as I could, because I realized I don't have a ton of experience, and I wanted to be pretty moldable and stuff, But like Rod just said, though, a lot of that stuff translates over into firearms, which I have had a lot of experience with. Just it's a little different with the alignment and everything, but not, as far as principles go, stance and grip and trigger pull instead of release, but the same kind of ideas. It's all the same. Right. You just reorient it into, honestly, a little more physicality, because of the traditional bow takes more physical ability than shooting a gun does. But yeah, I just want to be as moldable as possible. The only thing I think I was real confident on with those steps was my grip. I think that's the only thing you didn't give me a hard time with, was the grip on the bow.
Now let's be easy on that hard time.
Didn't coach you up. He didn't coach you up much.
He says at the beginning, this is how you want to grip it, and put it on the lifeline of your thumb and do this and this and this, except for you, because you shoot the hill style bow. So just strangle it and shoot it. And I went, I can do that. So,
yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to that. But,
yeah. It still goes in the lifeline. Don't get me wrong. I don't full fist that thing or do any of that, but it goes over real well.
So when you got outside and you started shooting, was there any? Because I know I had some. Was there anything like oh man, this I can't do
man,
this.
the release not release, but the back tension part. Letting that string go. That's still a struggle. Yeah. Because like you just said, it's like, you get to this position and it feels super good, everything Rod was saying. You get all the way back to anchor, and then like the stars and planets align and everything, and everything feels super good, and I'm set and I'm like, man, my muscles feel good. I have kind of a heavy pound bow for this sort of thing, but what's that?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
We have an 82-pound longbow here.
It's not 82. It's not quite that big, dude. It's 56.
That thing was a beast.
But it was 56 when I got here. Now it's like 64.
But the listener saw Tevis.
Yeah.
The dude's yoked, and he's like, that thing's heavy. So
yeah. Looking at it, I thought the bow was pulling him at first. You did get better, but as you watch other people too,
I like it.
It's fun because you learn from watching them too, and you get to see what Rod's talking about, and then you're like, oh, okay. It gets pointed out, they're corrected, you're paying attention. And that was one thing with you, was like at first it felt like the bow was almost pulling you, and then finally you were almost like you were holding the bow, and then you just need to work more on that last little bit of actually engaging the muscles to get it around.
It's hard to get that back muscle back on that thing, because like I said, I have a hard time letting go of just having everything perfect. I'm like, man, I could hold this bow all day sitting at this anchor like this, and then I just need to release my fingers, but you don't do that. You gotta keep pulling. I'm like, man, I got nowhere to go, but I do, but yeah, it's been fun. I wasn't struggling with it. I'm kind of a glutton for punishment with those bows, though. Give me the heavy one with lots of recoil, and I have a good time. I'm giggling when I shoot it.
You have to, yeah.
I love them.
One thing you said about watching somebody else with a coach and all that, that's very true. Sometimes it's easier to make correction is watching somebody else struggle with the same thing you're about to do, you know.
Yeah, seeing the correlation and kind of seeing what you're finally talking about
Right.
from like a different angle too, because you're inside yourself, so
Right.
I can't see necessarily what my back's going on while I'm trying to get my head in alignment and looking at a target. But when someone else is up there and you're coaching them the same kind of way, and I can see, okay, you're asking them to bring their shoulder around, or use that back tension to drive the elbow, not necessarily back like away from the body, but back and around the body. Like you could actually correlate that and see that. It's like, okay, now I need to feel that same way. So I think I learned just as much as you coaching everyone else as the one you were personally coaching me.
Yeah, you know, that's one reason I enjoy doing clinics, because it's a group and watching, because everybody's got the same struggles, and watching this guy, it's sometimes easier to learn, I think, versus when I'm doing one-on-one, which I do a lot at home, is that guy even, you know, he doesn't get the benefit of watching somebody else struggle. You know, and it's all a struggle, but it's a good struggle.
Yeah, I think even that's learning experience, because I don't shoot with anybody else on my own, you know. So it's nice to have a bunch of guys around and go, wow, you know, that guy looks really good. Maybe, and then, do I look like that guy, or
Do I look that bad?
do I look that bad?
Or I'm not
You
the
know?
only one.
Yeah, or whew, I'm not the worst guy here. Thank goodness.
Promise you, you're not. I've seen it.
and then when you're feeling beat down, you go, Rod, hey, look at that guy over there.
That's
Needs
nice.
some coaching up.
That's the nicest thing you've said to me all day. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm serious, man. You see it all a while. And it's the same thing. Most of the time, guys wanting to get better, they just don't have an avenue to do it. You know, and a lot of them has done a lot of online and this, that, and the other. But you know, it not being the same and getting really bad information. I mean, really terrible information from guys that really don't shoot well. Or know anybody that does, you know.
Well, one of the funniest things, this is a little bit off topic, but you and I talking when we were driving back from the airport, you mentioned how somebody online was explaining how to change the tiller.
Yeah, but twisting the string.
You got to tell that. This is beautiful.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff, and you know, I think at some point I can't be amazed anymore. But the guy was talking about his tiller was off, and he measured all that, and this guy got on absolutely, and I've seen it before. He said, what you do is you take the top string off, a loop off, and untwist it, and you add twist on the bottom one to change.
Because it evens each other out.
Because they don't connect in the middle, you know.
Yeah, they're not connected in the
They're
middle.
not the same string.
And amazingly, the brace height will stay the same if you do the same twist.
And yeah, I've seen that a lot. Well, if you twist the string up, the brace heights change, or not the brace height, but your knock point changes, running up and down the string. And guys say, well, just twist it from both ends; it won't move. But the most amazing thing, I mean, that was a shot, no joke. Changing tiller by twisting the bottom, and so that's
Totally
pretty good.
amused.
But the amazing thing, I watched it, was probably 40 comments on this, and nobody noticed it. Not a single soul said, well, you can't do that. Not a single one did.
Well, if they're like me, sometimes you just look at something and you're like, wow.
I'm not even touching
I'm
it.
not even. You're in a league your own, bro. Good luck.
There was a bunch more comments after this. I mean, he was pretty well early on. Just twist the top, untwist the bottom, and it'll change tiller. But no one said, that really don't work. Or they didn't offer another opinion that would work. You know, it was just chatter. They got off. It's like, that's a good one.
We had a winner. So Mark, and for me, this I didn't ask everybody this, but was there a time today when we started shooting? Did you feel like you executed a shot? Like, oh, there it is.
Oh yeah, I think from the first one we got out there, you know, because as Rod pointed out, I was short drew, and I knew I did because I just had a spot where I like to anchor.
The little string started fixing that early.
Yeah, little string drills fix that right up. And so when I got out there with the bow, you know, I thought, you know, I'm just gonna muscle this big ass bow back to where it's supposed to go, you know, and it actually wasn't that bad at all getting it back there, and it felt good from the start, just going straight at it, you know, other than working on that back tension part, but that's just me. You know, I'll get there eventually.
No, it's just everyone.
Yeah, I
Everybody
think
struggles with it.
in all those years that I didn't have any coaching or anything, I like to think, well, I know I've got a pretty good static release, just sticking it to my face and opening my hand up. I'm good at that, and I've been doing that for a long time, but with that comes there's always some sort of occasional collapse there with that static release, whether you're worn out or usually after some fatigue, you know. And so I just, you know, I don't want that to happen when I'm out hiking around the woods chasing something around and then pull that back and just gas out.
Yeah, the downside is you anticipate every shot.
Yeah,
Sometimes that gets out of control, anticipation.
How about you, Tevis? Did you feel like you had a shot or two that was like, oh, there it is?
I'd probably start almost from the same thing. So I brought my wife's 35-pound longbow, and then I brought my 53-pound longbow. And so we're in the group. I don't know if Rod saw this. Probably did. So I get up there, and everything feels in alignment, and I was probably not, perfect, but I let that, the back tension worked. It came out, and the bow literally shot straight out of my hand.
the target.
And went towards the target. It went like 2 feet out of my hand, straight at the target with the arrow.
Best part is he says, it should feel like the bow's going to jump out of your hand. He gets up there and shoots it, and the whole bow jumps out of his hand.
And not only, it didn't happen
It's a race
once.
between the bow and the arrow.
It didn't happen twice. It happened 3 times.
In a row, too.
I wasn't, in a row, and I was just not used to the grip on my wife's bow versus mine.
All good shooters has launched a bow one time.
Yeah.
They get to put a finger sling on for whatever, how they do it. And, and the key is that bow jumps straight to target. Every time.
And that's what it, just it jumping straight to target every time.
Yeah.
I did it, I was still, I was bringing my face to the string when I was drawing to start with, instead of the string to my face. So I know those first ones weren't perfect as far as alignment, but just that jumping of the bow, it just launched out of my hand. And I was shocked with it because I also had better back tension.
Right.
So is that it ripped it out of my fingers versus me letting go of the bow. So it surprised me. I wasn't ready for the shot, and the bow literally jumped out of my hands.
Yeah, that's the reason why we work on alignment first thing, because it has to come before back tension or anything else. We got to do the alignment, because if you're out of line, you can't get back tension, not on a consistent basis. Excuse me.
I'm assuming that was your wife's bow, because you wouldn't treat your own bow like that.
Yeah. I did eventually switch to my bow, and since Trent is here, I had to definitely baby it a little bit more since he built my bow. But
it's really pretty too. So be nice to.
He did a great job. Yeah, he did a great job, and it was fun working with him on that one. But yeah. Hopefully my wife won't listen to this, and that's why my bow's all scratched up. It's not the kids, it's you.
That bottom limb tip.
That's the bow I shot a time too.
Yeah,
it's a nice.
It's was it Mesa 2?
Three Rivers, yeah.
It's from Three Rivers. It's a good little shooting longbow. It's a reflex deflex. I mean, my wife loves it. It's perfect for her. And then my boys, as they've gotten stronger, have used that as a tool too, because it's a nice light bow. It fits well, and it actually zips an arrow pretty darn well.
And sounds like it zips pretty well.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. It flies as good as the arrows.
Yeah, but be sure to tell your wife I shot it, but I'm not the one that launched it. No launching from Rod.
Yeah, the scratches are from me, not from Rod.
Yeah, so appreciate you guys jumping on here.
Yeah, thanks for having us up here.
Yeah,
this has been a blast.
Yeah.
No, like just a comment, like you were saying earlier, though. Like you were talking about all the bad information out there and weeding through it. I mean, even the good information out there. Having a clinic like this really helps clarify the good information too, and like solidify it in your mind, or you're like, you have that aha moment, like, that's what they mean by this. Like, my knucklehead couldn't get it, dragging my fingers on the ground too long, as a caveman, and it's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to look or feel. So having that one-on-one or in that group setting where you actually get to see it or have someone adjust you to it, clarifies the good information out there too. So there's still a lot of great value.
There is good
there, even when there is good information out there. So.
And sometimes I tend to forget that because there's just so much bad.
But now you can pick it out.
There is good stuff. Yeah.
Now you can pick it out and say, I like this guy. This guy knows what he's doing. Maybe not so much this one.
Well, right on, guys. I appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're supposed to be all rock stars tomorrow. He says it gets easier, so.
It'll be easier, especially you just relax and that mind to get to work in, and you think, oh yeah, I got it now. I got it. You're not struggling as much and more laid back. It'll be easier tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we got Colby Dollar and Jason Christensen, right?
Yes,
sir. So, Colby, how long have you been shooting stick bows? Like, what's your background?
About 2 years.
Yeah.
Roughly. I started with a Hoyt Dorado. I ended up getting it off of a classified thing on the book. And then I kind of like the art of the bow, right? Like, if they're beautiful, I love them. And so I bought a Tolkien Pica and a Whistler at the same time. And those were both longbows and whatnot. And I shot those pretty good. And I just felt like I just continued to struggle. And then a good friend of mine, Brad, bought a Black Widow. And he's just raving about the Black Widows. And I was like, oh, that's just, not a homemade bow, basically. It's not something special and all this. And I was like, yeah. And so then I got one. Well, let's just say I was completely wrong. But I did love the weight of the Widow. That changed my shooting. Like, I couldn't really shoot worth a darn anyways in the beginning. But
Did you have any coaching, or were you?
no, I didn't have any coaching other than basically my buddy of mine, Brad, that started it just a few months before I did. He just went in with both feet and shot 200-300 arrows a night and started to get really, really good. And he never really had any coaching, but he was really good at compound. So, and I think that went towards the traditional side as well. But, so I worked with him a little bit and whatnot, and then I went hunting the last 2 years, roughly about the last 2 years, and got a few turkeys, shot at a couple of bucks without any luck, and then ended up here. I found here, I was just cruising around on Instagram, and I saw Randy Cooling's post with your phone number on it, saying you're going to have a course.
Randy said, hey, do you mind if I put your number on there? And I was like, I figured he was putting it on the website, right? So he's going to have the course and my phone number on the website. And then like 2 hours later, it's on Instagram. Like, dude, you put my phone number on Instagram.
And that's what you said. You're like, I was just making sure you weren't
you can't trust
solicitor. And I said, no. I was wondering if I could get in there. And I talked to you, and then I talked to Rod. I called Rod. He was coyote hunting at the time, and see if I could get in. And I'm honestly, I feel extremely fortunate to be here.
Yeah. So
I got a question before we go any further.
Yes, sir.
This is something seriously on my mind. He's got a Stickbow Chronicles t-shirt.
Yeah.
You got a Kifaru International. I mean, what about me? what the hell is wrong with me?
I wore this to represent.
I was thinking the
I didn't
same
mean
thing,
to cause
actually.
trouble.
I mean, what? Must be chopped cheese
It
or
is,
something.
I know.
What is up with
Colby
this?
cheese.
Yeah.
Here you go.
What is this? No.
in my defense, I went down to the t-shirt place to see if they were in this week or yesterday.
All right. Yeah, okay.
I bought mine a year ago.
We got this out of the way. I just want to know. It's like, I mean, I don't think I'm important, but maybe just a little bit of respect out of the deal. So
There will be some. There will be some respect. So, Jason, like, how long have you been shooting, and how did you get started?
So 23 or 4 years. I was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and a friend of mine had me over for dinner. And after we ate, he broke out a couple Bear recurves. Or he had a Bighorn custom bow and a Bear Hunter 2 recurve. And to then, I had never shot one. My brother had a compound, and my dad did, like the Browning old wooden bow compounds, and I shot those once or twice. But when we got the recurves out, we shot them in his backyard, and I was hooked right then. It was just, it was really cool to see when he shot it, the flight of the arrow. When I shot it, it was not quite as cool, but it was a lot of fun. So from that day, I bought the Bear Hunter 2 from him, and then I started learning how to shoot.
That Bear Hunter 2 was a stacking machine.
It was.
Oh, I had
now I
one.
know it was. Then I just thought that was a bow back then.
Yeah, no, I'm the same boat, but I think my brother still has it. Man, that was a. Whew.
It actually cracked in the riser too, right where the shelf is. The whole thing split, and I didn't know. I drilled holes, I glued wooden dowels in there and everything. It never blew up on me, which was good, but I kind of pieced it back together to make it shoot.
So, in your journey there, did you have anything to fall back on? Where'd you get the information? You just pulling her back and letting her go?
At first, I was just pulling her back, letting her go, and then I read the books that probably you guys did shooting when I started, like the Asbel books, and that is kind of how I learned how to shoot, was by reading those books and starting doing the swing draw, and then a lot of videoing myself with the old camcorders back then, trying to learn to do it the way that he did it. Any formal coaching, I hadn't had any until January of this year. So all the years that I've shot has just been what I either read on the internet, heard on a forum, talked to a buddy, some guy at the range who knew more than you did would try and help you here and there, and that's kind of. But this year is the year where I've actually started taking classes to increase my efficiency and accuracy, really.
Just for the listener, that's one badass beard you got going on there.
It is.
That's for
I can only imagine.
That's a real deal.
Yeah, you're crushing the beard game there, bro.
Well, thank you. 26 years I couldn't have one, so
Making up
here
for
it
is. So going into the class, again, like we got somebody that's kind of new and then somebody that's been around a while. When you looked at those 7 steps, was there anything on that sheet that you're like, well, I'm good there? But and was there anything on that sheet you're like, oh, this is gonna be a chore?
I could answer that question a lot better if I had that sheet in my hand.
He didn't retain anything. That's what I just heard. He didn't retain anything. There will be a test tomorrow,
had
Jason.
dinner. And, yeah.
That's been an hour and a half ago. Yeah, I get it.
For me, I honestly feel I just haven't been shooting right whatsoever from the beginning.
Well, don't feel bad, because I felt that way when he started coaching.
Right, and it just feels like, I got a lot of buddies come Thursday at my brother's place that we're going to do 3D at like we do every Thursday. They're going to think that because I was talking a bunch of game, I shouldn't have. I should have just kept my mouth shut. But it's going to be work in progress. There's no doubt. But from what I've learned already, I'm already better than I was, hands down. There's no doubt about it, other than ripping off my tit. But that was one thing, though, that really got me.
You had a couple guys had to take their nipple rings out. We won't name names.
Brutal.
Was the nipple rings came out.
Here we go again.
But that was about it.
You'll toughen up.
I know.
A few days.
But that was it, though. Like, I was honestly, I was extremely impressed. I mean, if I don't hold on to the bow and just, not squeeze it to death like I like doing, then I'll be fine, I think. If I follow those steps, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Yeah, and you can quit grabbing at the bow.
I know.
Because I was watching you real close and you didn't that time.
I know.
It's not that you
because I saw you out of my eye.
Yeah, you did it real good, and I knew you was really going through the effort because I was watching. But yeah, you shot that shot just great, so you can do it every time. So it's not like it's impossible to dream.
Right.
That's where I don't think I'll have any issue with any of the 7 steps, because even just last week I started shooting a vertical bow, and I never have done that. But I wanted to start doing that in preparation to come here. But the thing that I think has got me over all the years is doing the drills so that those 7 steps are just ingrained into my subconscious.
Exactly.
Because as soon as we finished class and everybody left, they're like, hey, let's shoot at 20 real quick. And I know for a fact that I did not get, I let up on my back.
Right.
And I think it's because now I started focusing on the target and where I wanted to hit. And just not doing enough drills. I felt myself. collapse on the shot. So it's having to self-discipline just myself to actually do the drills over and over shooting arrows.
Well, I can say everyone in all these years that actually kind of completed the drills and the bridge have become really good shooters.
What did you say? Completed the drills and
the bridge.
What's
the bridge
the bridge
program?
Oh, okay.
It's the last step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's we get off a target to do drills to learn how to do little operations with a bow, but we still need to gain confidence, and we got to introduce aim into this thing. So that's what the bridge does. It's a bridge between form and aiming.
We get to aim tomorrow?
No, because you're going to do this at all home. No, let's don't get that started. And we might, if we get like 90% of everybody's execute just nearly flawless, no less thans, we'll start shooting targets.
Yeah, we ain't aiming tomorrow.
Not 90%.
Yeah, put an end to that.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you went out there, Jason, like when you actually went out there and started going through the drills, was there anything that you thought, well, this is going to be really difficult for you?
The alignment part, because I felt like I was online, and then Rod had to kind of move my shoulders over, and then that made me feel awkward, like it just didn't feel natural compared to what I've been doing, for the last 20-something years. So
you felt like when he moved you in the right position, you felt like the target was behind you.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody felt that way.
Yeah, and it was awkward. So then, yeah, that felt very difficult to keep doing for sure.
I couldn't even pull the bow.
Yeah, but after we were shooting, you was down on the corner. Your alignment looked really good down there. I mean, it did.
Right.
It looked like exactly like I'd like to see everyone doing it. And I strive to myself. Now, you did get a little soft and not really trust it to pull hard. But the alignment looked fantastic. So, it'll come to you pretty fast, I think.
So overall, Rod, like, I know you've mentioned a few things through all of these interviews. Like, what's the biggest challenge when you come to a group? You've coached clinics like this with high-level shooters in the whole group, right. And this is, a bunch of bow hunters. Like, there's no high-level shooters here. What's a common theme when you see a group like this?
Well, one thing, because of there really wasn't any guys anticipate or wanting to be high-level 3D shooters or target guys and all that. So it was more a hunting deal, and we started it out a little different. I spent more time trying to convince everybody that this helped hunting, and that's a little different, but everything else is just identical because, you can go to Spain or Norway or Mississippi or Georgia or anywhere, and everybody's got the same problems and the same things they need to work on, and that's just getting better with the basics, And in some guys, like we've had a few today that need to learn the basics, the basic stuff, and then get world-class shooters. They try to get better in the basics, but you're working on the same thing they are.
I'll say, like, when you break down the shot in the barn there, there's not a lot of steps to it.
No.
And by themselves, starting out green, other than I would think that the placement, the shoulder alignment, to me is like that's a challenge. But everything else seems like it's pretty simple in itself.
It is.
But I'll tell you, like, there was a point where I turned around, I just looked at you and I said, I have no idea what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I'm doing any of this right. And it wasn't like 2 shots later was one of my best shots.
Right.
It was like I was completely lost. There were so many different steps that I was trying to implement.
Yeah.
It was like, I didn't know. Yeah. I had no clue.
And see, that's one of the things that I try to avoid, and we end up doing a little bit of it anyway, is work on one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
We try to set it up with 10 reps with each drill with total mental and visual focus on the drill being performed, and that way we can learn super fast. But if you try to do several things at one time, you never get good at any of them.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can get off of target for a little while and just turn that blank bail into an arrow catcher instead of a target, and work on one detail, 10 steps, and then work on all the steps. You know, every one of those drills we got listed, do them. Work on all of them, because we want to make the shot across the board better. Now I get guys a lot of times that they feel like somehow or other they need, like say for instance, if I could just learn back tension, I'd be a world-class shooter, you know. In reality they still need to work on stance and alignment and all the other parts. So they go home with the idea, well, I'll just double up and do all my drills on this one thing we're missing. Problem with that being is you can't trick a subconscious. First time you get under pressure, you know, you may be real good with it, whatever you thought you were bad on, most times the expansion, but little simple things like the subconscious realized you really didn't work on your bow hand. You don't know what it's doing, how it's going to react. We didn't work on anything else. So you've got a flaw already built in, because the subconscious knows you can't trick it. So I try to get everybody to do all the drills, 10 reps each drill. And sometimes I add drills like if you can't stop moving your head, you add a head position drill and a no-fire drill. We do that, learn to let the bow down at will, and things like that. And it always works out really fast. You get better because you replaced a habit with a different habit, a better habit. So it comes along pretty fast, you know.
You know, and I'll say that, like, when I turned to you and I said, I don't know what I'm doing, I've got no idea, you know, I was just a little bit overloaded.
Right.
You changed two tiny things on me. One was just moving my bow hand just a smidgen, and pointed out that I was laying my head into it, and that was one of my best shots of the day, was right after that. So.
Yeah. And see, all that'll be easy if you broke down, say after the clinic, and you actually did 10 reps for each on every one of the drills. Well, it becomes very, very easy because you're paying attention to detail. Now today we get into shooting shots some, you know, everything. Instead of working on the one drill, we're trying to do 5, and that's a tough thing to do, because we've tried to do everything at one time, and breaking it down to where you're just working on one is harder to do than you actually think. But it's paramount in being prepared for every shot and each firing solution you come up, because sooner or later you don't know how to do it wrong anymore. You know, I've coached some people that never shot before, from their first shot, just, you know, and not berating them, okay, do this perfect, but just from the get-go I start laying a foundation, and then, you know, some of them in 2 or 3 months they're virtually unbeatable. You know, because they never had any bad habits, where we, as you know, y'all been shooting a while, us three especially, well, we have to replace habits, you know. And the drills they're fantastic to do it that way.
So you mean like you walk up to the target and we're doing our stance drill, our alignment, we're just bows in our hand, we're not paying attention to anything except for when I walk up on my target, how my shoulders are lined up to the target, where my head is,
and go ahead and draw the bow, but don't fire, just draw the bow to get to anchor without moving the head.
And then 10 drills with string plate, your hand placement on the string, your fingers, and just that's the part that, I mean, just for myself, I know that lack of self-discipline is one of the issues that I'll have doing it.
Yeah.
So at least I know that that's what we need to do.
I get it. I do.
Yeah, I'm going to do one or two of the drills, and I'm going to walk back 28 yards and send it.
We see if this works.
Well, it's like I said, when I coached at Sporting Goods Catter, we'd spend all day one-on-one with the guy, getting him, you know, put up shot, and we're just very intense. Some of them pretty good shooters. And we'll go eat lunch, and every guy ever want to do the same thing. They get back in there, and they're headed toward that bow to see how good they've got. And I can go ahead and promise them, you're not that great yet, you know. But everybody does it, and then they collapse every time, you know. And I say, well, And I kind of love it because I get that little coaching moment, they call it. You know,
That's what I told you.
you know, we're at 23 yards here, and you shot it was pretty bad, you know, weak shot, didn't do anything. And this morning you're shooting good and strong. Well, did that feel good? Oh, yeah, fantastic. I said, well, I noticed at 23 you didn't do anything. And I always say, well, how bad is it at 40? Everybody hang their head now. But it's an important step, you know, and some of them get really good at it from there on.
I just don't know if I've ever shot squared up in my life.
Yeah.
You know, feet aligned, shoulder width apart, shoulder towards target.
Yeah.
You know, bow's always towards target.
Yeah.
But then after, you know, and I always canted ever so a little bit because I was always, every time you pull back my arrow, it just seemed, when I first started, you know, you didn't have a ton of money for good stuff, for arrows and knot. I mean, good stuff, so you'd have to bite the knot to keep it on the string. Otherwise, and if you didn't cant, your arrow was falling off.
Right.
There was just no two ways about it. But like today, even with the stuff I have right out there, my wife's, I mean, I tell you what, it's total game changer how you shoot that way. Like, I feel square. I did miss a target at 5 feet, but hey, that's all right. It happens.
It may not have been you. It may have some other guys down on the end right there. And I was demoing a shot, and you know, not that I'm a great shooter anymore, but they noticed how quiet that bow was when I shot it. And it might have been your group. And because, you know, we make the bow make noise because we're not in alignment and we're making it string increase the F pass and the noise, and we really don't know if we're going to miss right or left, you know, from shot to shot.
Yeah, you said that early on, and it made complete sense. It's like a lot of the noise can be from the shooter.
Yeah, the bows are quiet.
Yeah.
You know, widows have got a reputation of being noisy, and in the wrong hands, they really are. Mine's generally pretty quiet, you know.
Well, I think we got everybody, a couple of them squirted out. I wanted to get Justin on here, but Rod, I appreciate you coming out, and I was stoked because, you know, everybody here, you know, pull them aside and like, what do you think? What do you think? And their eyes are big. You're like, man, this is good. It's good stuff. So
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work at it.
Yeah. So good stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, enjoyed it myself.
Thanks guys.
Thank you.